What's up, good people? We're back. This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition. What You Owe Me, Part 9, The Weekend Doubler. When we left off, Angela was in LJ's office at his private investigation firm, and he just ran down his plan for how they will investigate Marcus in his affair with Jessica. At the end of their conversation, after she met his lead forensic investigator and his lead covert investigator, he admonished her to keep details of the affair and the investigation under wraps. He also told her to call an attorney that he works with on occasion. So now she's in her car and she's trying to decide where to go. Does she go back to her office and try to work the rest of the day with all of this stuff running through her mind? Or does she go home early knowing that Marcus is going to get an alert on his phone from the alarm system notifying him that she's in the house, and then she's going to have to come up with an explanation for why she's home early? Or does she go and talk with her mother? And she decides to go with the latter. Her mother lives about 45 minutes away from LJ's office, so she heads in that direction. While she's driving, she starts thinking about all the things that have transpired over the years, particularly the number of times when Marcus has behaved in ways that are inconsistent or suspicious, and the number of times that LJ has accused Marcus of some untoward behavior, but usually with very little proof or evidence. Certainly nothing like a whole tape recording, right? And in all of those instances, she gave her husband the benefit of the doubt. She's not an assumer, so she didn't want to assume negative things about her husband without any just cause. She remembers all the times growing up when her parents would argue and her mother would accuse her father of things, and they would have these big blow up, knock down, drag out arguments and fights only to stay together. And she never wanted to have that type of relationship. Eventually, her parents divorced, and it was very volatile and very contentious and ugly, and she just never wanted that for her life. That wasn't the type of marriage that she wanted to have or the type of life that she wanted to bring children into. So she made a conscious decision not to confront him with every suspicion and every rumor and every inclination that she might feel that something was going on. She'd ask him questions, she'd allow him to give her whatever story, and absent some glaring obvious lie, she never pressed the issue. And there weren't any obvious glaring lies. So she was happy. She didn't necessarily put her head in the sand until she suffocated, but she never worked that hard to find out what was really going on. She lived under the premise that what goes on in the dark will always come to the light. And unfortunately, it's coming to the light now. But she starts to think about her past interactions with Miss Jessica. And they've been limited, few and far between. But what she realized is that the first time that she met Miss Jessica, something was clearly up. On occasion, like most companies do, Marcus's company would have events and functions that would be open to spouses and or families. And every year they would have a holiday party. That holiday party was typically for the office staff only because it was a fundraising event where in order to attend, you had to make a contribution toward a charity. In exchange for your ticket, they would have silent auctions, an open bar, and additional other things so that they could collect funds for the charity that the employees would choose to support for that year. So often the attendees would be limited to the chiefs, the executives, the directors, even the assistants. But typically it wouldn't include frontline staff, and it never included employees from the plant. So it was easy to know who you should expect to attend these holiday parties. Invariably, the employees would bring their spouses, and those employees who were unmarried would bring a date. And who they brought as a date would vary from year to year. So no one attending would be surprised to see people that they hadn't met before. So Angela was not looking around at any of these holiday parties to see who was new because she was always focused on having a good time with her husband and finding out who was going to win awards and those things that are usually included in a charity event holiday party for a company. However, 2 years ago at the holiday party, there was a new face in the crowd, and Angela didn't notice. But throughout the party, she kept feeling like somebody was staring at her. Now, y'all know what it feels like for somebody to stare a hole in your head, and you feel those hairs stand up on the back of your neck, and you're looking around trying to figure out who is staring at you. But every time you turn around, nobody's looking at you because they stop looking at you as soon as they see you turning around. That's what Jessica was doing. So Angela would look around. She wouldn't see anything. She'd turn back around. Marcus is the director for the accounting division. And so they were seated at a table with other directors and their spouses. And diagonal across from them was the table with the chiefs and their spouses. Well, when it was time for one of the chiefs to get up and introduce themselves, introduce the charity that was being supported, introduce the awards that were being given, and talk about the candidates for the awards for that evening, and talk about the additional fundraising opportunities like silent auction and things like that, this woman gets up from the chief's table and starts walking up to the podium. All eyes are now on her, and Angela realizes that she's never seen this woman before in her life. So she kind of looks at Marcus and says, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, the chief of operations." And she's thinking to herself, he's never even mentioned that there was a new chief of operations. I know he told me that Billy retired, but he never did tell me who took his place. That's odd. As usual, she brushed it off. So all eyes are on Jessica, and Jessica gets up on the podium and she introduces herself as Jessica Wynn. She goes into the whole spiel that I just outlined when she's announcing those individuals who are up for awards. And she looks over at Marcus at the table. Her face just lights up. And Angela kind of looks at her and looks at Marcus. Marcus looks a tad bit uncomfortable, but as is typical, she brushes it off. Angela does notice that when Jessica's walking back to the table, the chief of finance and accounting, Bruce Middleton, is checking Jessica out. So she leans over to Marcus and says, looks like Bruce has a thing for Miss Jessica. And Marcus says, no, he doesn't. He's married. And Angela says, okay. And she just goes back to her plate of salad or her bowl of soup or whatever it was that she was eating, and nothing else is said about Miss Jessica. Later in the evening, Marcus wins the award. People are coming around to congratulate him, and Jessica makes it a point to come around to congratulate him, despite the fact that she congratulated him when he was on the stage receiving the award that she handed to him. But nevertheless, she congratulates him and asks him, is he going to introduce her to his beautiful wife? Typically, Marcus would have made the introductions without being prompted, but he goes ahead, he makes those introductions, and Angela, in making conversation with Jessica, asks her how long she's been with the company. Well, Jessica informs her that she's been with the company for 2.5 years. So Angela is in complete shock. She cannot believe that not only has her husband never mentioned this woman, and this woman is a chief of operations who he's absolutely had to have meetings with collectively with the other chiefs, the other directors, and individually and in small groups. And she never made an appearance in any of his How Was Work Today honey stories at the dinner table, but she's never seen this woman at any of the company functions. And Angela knows for a fact that at the minimum, she's attended the annual family cookout in the summer and the annual holiday party in December. So if this woman's worked here for 2.5 years, how is it even possible that she's never seen her? She says to her, really? How did I manage to miss meeting you at the other company events? I'm pretty sure I've been at all of them. Jessica says, I was at this year's family cookout. And Angela says, oh yeah, that's right. I wasn't there. Well, what about last year's holiday party? And Jessica says, oh, I was on maternity leave taking care of my daughter. And Angela said, oh, well, what about the cookout from last year? And Jessica says, oh, I was on bed rest. Well, what about the Christmas party the year before that? And Jessica says, I don't remember seeing you there. It was at that moment while driving down the highway that Angela remembered why she missed that previous holiday party. As a tear rolled down Angela's face, she tried to keep her vision clear, driving on the highway, 70 miles per hour. Her heart just broke all over again, remembering seeing Marcus tying his tie in the mirror and looking at her in the reflection. She said to him, babe, it's okay. Just go. I'll be fine. Go, have a good time. Tell everyone that I said hello. Make sure you bid on one of the biggest and best pictures available. And whether you bring it home or not, just make sure you donate to the charity. Okay? And he says, listen, babe, I can stay home if you need me to be here with you. Believe me, my bosses, they'll understand. Angela said, no, babe, you made a commitment. We made a commitment. And it's bad enough that I can't go. But there's no reason why you shouldn't go. Marcus said, a miscarriage is a pretty good reason for me to stay home with my wife. Angela said, I know, babe, but this isn't the first time. And it probably won't be the last. Marcus said, yeah, it's definitely going to be the last. Because we're not doing this anymore. Angela says, what do you mean we're not going to do this anymore? Marcus said, listen, I'm just not willing to put your body through this anymore. I'm not willing to put your mind through it anymore. And to be frank, I'm not willing to get my hopes up and get them dashed anymore. Angela says, so I'm getting your hopes up? And Marcus says, Angela, baby, I didn't say you're getting my hopes up. I'm saying my hopes are getting up. They get up every time you get a positive pregnancy test. And every time we get a little bit further along in the pregnancy and then to have the same outcome, it breaks my heart to see you destroyed. It breaks my heart to see tears in your eyes, to see the brokenness in you, to see your weight fluctuating, to see you depressed and crying out to God, only for the same thing to happen over and over again. And it breaks my heart because you know I want nothing more than to have a baby. Angela cries and says, Marcus, I'm so sorry that I can't give you what you want. But don't you know I want it too? Please don't give up on me. Marcus says, I'm not giving up on you, babe. I'm here with you. But we really don't have to keep doing this. As a matter of fact, I'm making a decision as the head of this household that we're no longer doing this. We can explore some other options. I know you talked about IVF as a possibility. Let's just try that. We've tried everything else. Let's try IVF. Figure out how many eggs we can get. Do the maximum number of cycles that the insurance will cover. And if all else fails, I'll make the decision again when it's time to stop. But we're not doing it this way anymore. We just can't. We need help. We need scientific intervention. And that's okay. You're not a failure. I'm not a failure. These things happen. We have the money. We have the resources. Let's just do IVF. We don't have to do this anymore. And if you want me to stay, I'll stay. Marcus reaches for his tie and starts taking it off. Angela says, babe, I don't need you to stay. I know that I have your full support. I promise. I have everything I need right here. I can call Steph if anything comes up. I don't need you to stay. I want you to go. I want you to have a good time. And I'll be here when you get back. And Marcus says, are you sure? And Angela said, I love you. Please, go. Marcus says, babe, I love you. It's me and you till the wheels fall off. Angela says, I know. At that moment, Angela pulls out outside of her mother's residence. She wipes her face. She says a silent prayer. She pulls herself together. She grabs her purse. She goes inside. When she approaches the front desk, she sees one of her mother's favorite nurses, and she asks her, How's my mom doing today? Nurse says, oh, she's doing pretty well. Miss Cheryl's in pretty good spirits. Angela says, is she coherent? Is she cognizant? Is she living in the present today? And the nurse says, well, she kind of comes and goes, but I'm sure when she sees you, she'll perk up. Angela says, where is she? And the nurse says, oh, she's in the day room. I believe the last time I saw her, she was knitting. Angela says, okay, great. Thanks so much. Angela goes to the day room, and there's her mother sitting by the window, singing one of her favorite songs and knitting. Somebody prayed for me and had me on their minds. They took their time and prayed for me. Baby, how you doing? They said you were coming. Angela looks at her mother and says, hey, Mom, who said I was coming? Oh, girl, I've been waiting for you for at least 3 hours. Where you been? Angela says, I was at work, Mom. I got here as soon as I could. Angela's mom says, come over here and give me some sugar now. So Angela goes over and gives her mom a big kiss and sits down. And then one of the nurses comes in and says, oh, Miss Cheryl, I see your daughter made it. Angela says, oh, how you doing, Miss Diane? Miss Diane says, she's been telling us all day that you were coming. I'm glad you were able to make it. Angela says, okay. Angela looks at her mom and says, well, I guess you were missing me, huh? And her mom says, oh, no time for small talk. Get to the point. Let's get to it. Angela says, Mom. Miss Cheryl says, time's a wasting. My grandbaby needs you, so we gonna have to get this over with. You go on and run it down, and I'm gonna tell you what to do. Angela says, Mom, what grandbaby? Neither Steph nor I have any children. Her mom says, that one you got baking in the oven, baby. Now come on, spit it out. Angela realizes that her mother is literally operating from an alternative universe because dementia. So she decides, you know what? I'm just going to unload everything. Next time I come to visit, she's probably not even going to remember any of this, but I'll have gotten it out, and she might actually manage to give me some good advice. So Angela unburdens her soul. Her mother holds her hand and nods and says in the right places and asks what seems to be appropriate questions. And when she finishes the story, her mother says, okay, baby, listen to me. You have to be very careful because you are carrying precious cargo. And this baby has a wonderful destiny. And by the time this baby makes it earthside, I won't be here. I won't be here to help you take care of this baby. I won't be here to give you any more advice. So you have to listen, and you have to listen carefully. I need you to listen to everything that I say. Do you understand?